Welcome, everybody, to the State of the Market Sports Ticket Discussion. I'm Robert Wolonsky, the Communications Director here at Heritage Auctions, and I'm thrilled, nay, honored to be joined today by Chris Nerat, Consignment Director in the sports category, and I have been told by Chris Nerat, the world's leading authority in the sports ticket market, and Mike Provenzale, who is the production manager in the sports category. For the next 45 minutes or an hour or so, we'll be discussing the state of the market when it comes to sports tickets, which I'm sure you know by now since you're here, a client of Heritage's, read the newspaper, watch TV, has become the hottest sports collectible at the moment. And as Chris Nerat reminds me repeatedly, Heritage is at the heart of that moment and that movement. So we're really excited to talk about that. If you have a question, feel free to email it, drop it into the StreamYard here. Or if you want to do it anonymously, do so at tommyn@ha.com. Tommy's directing with Linda, and they'll make sure that we look at some pretty cards, some pretty tickets. We usually discuss cards, and we'll get to your questions. But gentlemen, I'm going to do something I don't often do, which is actually start with a client question, because we got a few in advance of today's discussion. And Robert asks here, what is the best way to get an estimate of the value of a ticket where the population is low and the ticket would be considered rare? Take, for example, a full unused signed and numbered Rickey Henderson stolen base 1406 ticket, PSA 7. There's only one in the pop report. Or, for example, a rare, never before seen more than one Ja Morant full unused debut ticket. Or Michael Jordan's full unused basketball debut. Some claim his baseball debut, to be an exhibit game or a spring training ticket, but his AA debut is his true baseball debut. Years ago, I owned a rare Derek Jeter full debut ticket, vintage signature from his rookie season. It was really hard to get an accurate value when he retired. I had values anywhere from $1,500 to $10,000. So obviously that brings us to the question, how does one value these? And we'll certainly get to the values. We'll certainly get to the rise in popularity and so forth. But if you could address Robert's question as best you can, Chris, since you are the expert in the field.
Yeah,
foremost expert.
And I'm going to sound like I'm not, because that's a heck of a great question and a lot in there. But there's no
Robert making a claim for foremost ticket expert with that question.
There is no obvious direct answer for those questions. I mean, what you always want to do is use comparable results. But like he said, he has a good problem. There just aren't any comps probably. You do what you can do. But really and I'm going to sound like I'm promoting our company to sell things.
I'm pretty sure that's why you're here.
That's true.
So I don't really feel
novel
like
idea. Let's give it a whirl.
Well, I get it. But really the only way you're going to know for sure is to sell it at auction in a great, auction setting. You can definitely use comps, like he said, Ja Morant. There's maybe only one of them. Maybe use a Giannis Antetokounmpo full ticket, but I know for a fact there's more than one of those. So how do you value it? It's a lot of it's a gut feeling, but we do this for a living, and we just had our last auction a few weeks ago, and there's no way that we could have predicted the record prices that we were getting for some of these tickets.
Well, it is the old, cliche basically that everything is worth what two people are willing to pay for it.
And it really, really is true when answering that question. It's a good problem to have when you don't have the only one, but as far as you're trying to, ensure your collectibles that there's only one of to come up with the value, you're guessing. I mean, that's just the answer.
And he gave that range on the Jeter ticket. You could say in this market, go with the high range of what you think.
And it might even be higher.
Yeah. But, with tickets, there's a lot of variations. There's stubs, there's full, there's autograph, there's, inscriptions on them. We've sold some Brady tickets with the NFL debut inscription. And he said with his Jeter sign that it's the vintage rookie signature. That's an extra layer on it.
That's a big layer. We just took in that Tiger Woods full ticket that's signed, and he signed it in '96 at the tournament, at his first professional tournament. And to me, that's so much better than one that was signed, last week by Tiger Woods.
Right.
Well, look, I want to back up all the way back to the fact that when I started here, what's that?
How far are we going back?
1649.
All right.
No way. So when I started here 2 years ago, tickets weren't necessarily a thing that we discussed very often. Certainly, it was cards, vintage cards, modern cards, sports memorabilia. I don't recall 2 years ago that tickets was a big part of our conversation. It seems to have changed dramatically in the last few months. And I wanted to find out from the world's foremost expert on the subject, when did tickets become such a hot commodity?
Exact date.
About a year ago.
Yeah.
When they just exploded.
Did that take you by surprise?
I've been promoting tickets since PSA started grading tickets. God, it must be over 15 years ago now. Really? And I've been wrong every year. I always said these are the best thing because, you have a lot of sports cards that there's hundreds of thousands of, and there's dozens of tickets. Look at the Michael Jordan 1986 Fleer card. There's literally at least 100, 200, 300,000 of that card. Right. How many debut tickets are there? There's dozens. And they were actually at the game. The cards weren't. If you have a ticket stub, if it was a full, obviously it probably wasn't at the game. But
unless in the case of our Jordan full, it was actually at the game.
In his pocket, right? Yeah, I mean, but I always said that ticket stubs are really as close to the game as a game-worn jersey or piece of equipment because it's at the game.
Right.
A card, unless you had a card in your wallet, which it wouldn't have got a good grade if you did, it wasn't at the game. So I've been thinking that this was going to happen for a long time, and I've been wrong every year. I think COVID has played into it. People sitting back in their house, all hunkered up and looking at maybe their cards, but they want something else.
Right.
They know that there's a lot of cards, the big sale of the Michael Jordan ticket for $250,000. I think in December of last year. That was on the ESPN ticker. So everybody started talking about tickets then. So it started a little bit before then. And then when that hit the ticker, it's been crazy.
I had a reporter from one of the Chicago papers ask me recently, what do you credit the rise in interest? And I keep telling them the same thing over and over again, which is that, look, they don't make tickets anymore. You don't go to a game, you flash your phone, that's about it. In rare instances do you get a ticket. And I sort of wonder how the nostalgia for that paper ticket of yore has played into this.
I don't see it. Do you see that at all? Obviously everyone knows, you have to use your phone now for a ticket. Maybe that adds a little layer to it. But I always thought they were cool way before the digital tickets. What do you think?
I'd say that the nostalgia of it plays a part for people that are our age, that remember, and like you said, during COVID, a lot of people were going through their collections. One thing a lot of people kept is you go to a game that you enjoyed, you keep the ticket, or a concert even. A lot of people going through that, wondering, are these tickets worth anything? Some are, some aren't. But I think that nostalgia plays a factor for sure.
It's a layer.
Well, it's interesting. You can go on eBay and find people selling tickets to concerts, and if I wanted that ticket from a Hot Club concert that I, threw away 30 years ago.
Hot Club?
It was a punk rock club in Dallas.
Oh, I thought it was a band. I don't know. Anyway.
So if I've lost that ticket over the years and want to have a keepsake from that, I used to be a music critic. I went to hundreds of concerts. I didn't keep any of those things because they were not, to my mind, they weren't meant to be kept.
I think you were in the minority because everyone I know, I don't care who they are, if you're rich, not rich, if you were going to wrestling, if you were going to concerts, you were keeping your tickets in a scrapbook or a shoebox. You may never look at them or haven't looked at them in 30 years.
Right.
But so why didn't you keep them?
He was probably getting them for free, so he didn't.
Well, they piled up. There was at a certain point you just have to decide what pieces of paper do I keep and what do I not keep. I kept all my comics, I kept all my baseball cards, I just didn't keep my concert tickets. I deeply regret it. My dad kept his. When my dad died a couple of months ago, I found tickets to games from the 50s that he had kept. And I thought, all right, they're beautiful keepsakes. A Ticketmaster stuff wasn't necessarily the sexiest thing to keep anyway. They don't look like most of these tickets that we're surrounded by now.
And so that actually brings me into the game changer from PSA. I don't know when they started grading them, and I should. It's very recent, but they never used to grade Ticketmaster tickets.
Right.
And I remember when I first started submitting them in a PSA, my tickets, I would send them some Ticketmaster tickets. We're talking 15 years ago. And they sent my first batch of Ticketmaster tickets back. And then I always thought Ticketmaster were not worth anything or not. You can't get them graded, right? Well, I believe at the beginning of this year, maybe, or the end of last year, they started grading Ticketmaster tickets, and it has been a game changer. Now you can get the Michael Jordan first preseason game ticket in Indiana graded. When we first started selling those tickets, we set like a record for the first one. We sold for like $30,000, but it wasn't graded.
Right. It was
Now we have one in our current auction that ends this Sunday, and it's the highest graded Ticketmaster ticket from that event. So it's different now.
I do want to talk to you a little bit about the authentic versus the number grade from PSA. How significant of a difference does it make, and would one over the other?
We're so much at the beginning of this market and the craze that I'll give you my opinion on that. But
You are the foremost expert.
I guess if we keep saying it, I will be. I like it.
Well,
if you have a ticket, say a Michael Jordan debut ticket, and it has a few creases in it, if it would be a number grade, if you sent it in for a number grade, probably a 1 or a 2.
yeah.
This is out of 10, right? So would you rather have the label say, PSA 1, PSA
poor,
2?
even it says on the label.
Yeah, poor. I would never want the word poor on my ticket. So you would go with authentic. I think it looks a lot better. And I think that's probably where the market is going.
It depends on the ticket. Like the Jackie Robinson tickets, there's only 7 known. Most are just authentic, and the highest graded, I believe, is a 3. So if you can get a 2 or a 3 on that one, you want to get it graded.
Yeah.
But
I have a hard time wanting like poor on my ticket. But, and we sold a Michael Jordan that was a 1 or a 1.5 in our last auction. Sold for $99,000. I might have opted to put authentic on it. Would it have went for more? I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the value is that's what you want to focus on is how you would like it graded or slabbed. Would it have sold for more as authentic? I don't know. If it's the only PSA 1 or 2, then
looking at the pop report is important. If you can look at your ticket, figure out a good range of what the grade, look at the pop report if you think it could be at the top of the pop or the only one in a certain grade.
But I guess you have to go with the number grade.
Right. And if there's just a lot that are authentic and only a hand, and you think yours would be a 1 or a 2, and there's a lot of high graded ones, probably better just to go with the authentic than to put yours in a 1 or a 2.
Agreed.
See, I find it fascinating that one even would care about that, in as much as this is not a card. You're not concerned about creases. You're not concerned about off centering. It was meant to be put in a wallet, kept. I mean, it's not like it's meant to be pristine, put in a vault, and kept away for decades. I mean, this is a whole different area of collectible.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't meant to be.
Right.
But a Star Wars figure from 1980 wasn't meant to not be taken out of the package either. But that's why those are worth a lot of money.
Right. Those kids that were monsters and never opened them.
Exactly. Yeah. Those weird kids. I hope I didn't offend anyone. I was one of
just me.
I can talk about that because I was one of the weird kids. Yeah, exactly.
Nothing's changed.
Correct. Anyway.
No, go ahead. I want to talk about the
I lost my train of thought.
You were talking about why one wouldn't want it. About the fact that they weren't meant to be kept.
I mean, you can make the argument that, baseball cards were meant to go on bike spokes.
Sure.
Condition in our industry is usually a big part of everything.
Yeah.
So,
it's a part of how you can, part of collecting is bragging, and it's a way to evaluate what you have. You've got a nice one, it's authentic, but mine's a 3. So in that person's opinion, theirs is better.
But it's an interesting thing, right? Because we're talking about the thing that was there at the game, of which there's only a handful that survived because people like me threw them out for whatever reason. So if you have a handful of things that exist, by their nature, they already are rare. They already are valuable and collectible, especially to those who want to keep safe for a particular moment.
And they are.
Right. So it's interesting to me that this is the category where you can have a stub, a full ticket. And I assume some people might even have full tickets that they've held on to that come apart. These things were not meant to be held together. So what happens in those particular cases if somebody comes to you and says, I have the full ticket, I just have it in 2 pieces?
Well, the good thing is PSA will still grade them if you have the full that has been detached.
Yeah.
What you're probably going to want to do, and I don't think I've ever said this in any category of our industry, is you're going to want to take a piece of transparent tape and tape the back of it to put it back together. because then PSA will call it a full, and they'll just note that there's tape on the back of it. If you don't put the
Really?
tape, if you don't put the tape on it, they'll grade, I believe, one of the two stubs, and it won't be a full in the slab. It'll just be a
That
stub.
was an insider tip there.
Yeah, well, it's something.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, of
the
course.
insider tip.
Yeah,
from the
I mean,
world's
it's-
renowned,
I'm
foremost
learning right
expert.
now as well.
It's nothing earth-shattering, but I would definitely rather have my full, even though it's in two pieces. I'd rather still have it called a full than a stub,
Yeah.
and that's the way to do it.
I do want to show some of the tickets, because obviously folks have been looking at us for a few minutes. They've actually tuned in to actually look at some tickets. So I do want to go to the records, and I want to get to that Jackie Robinson ticket that sold. It's the debut ticket. It is the record price. It just sold. Tom, if you want to pull that up, I certainly would appreciate that. But I want to talk about that because that was in the same auction as the Michael Jordan rookie debut, and that was a full ticket. And we saw that kind of play out over the course of the auction, which was going to go for more. Did it surprise you that Robinson sold for more than Jordan?
It did for me, just because I was, that was my consigner.
Personal interest.
Well, no, I talked to him, probably 20 times throughout the process. So I was definitely focused on that, breaking a record. And I didn't know about the Jackie Robinson until a couple days before the auction. So, did it surprise me? Yeah, I wasn't really paying attention to the Jackie Robinson ticket.
Thank you for reading my press release on the subject.
I know. But yeah, another thing is the Jordan stub that sold in December for $250,000. That was the record at the time.
Right.
So it only made sense to me that that was the record, and now we have the only full. So that was probably going to surpass the stub as being the new record. That said, on the left side, it was pretty rough.
Right.
And the condition wasn't great. And even though it was the only one, I think that the condition might have played into it not surpassing the Jackie as the record breaker.
But don't you think also that the Jackie Robinson sells for more because it is a far more significant historical value?
I mean, that could be in the Smithsonian.
Yeah.
That's a piece of American
100%.
history.
100%. It didn't miss it by much. They're both highly significant. But yeah, the Jackie Robinson is arguably the most significant ticket on earth.
And we're coming up on the 75th anniversary of that on April 15th. So it was a good situation for it. The market's high. It's an anniversary year, very rare ticket. And, even if you weren't interested in baseball, if you were just interested in history or American history, that's something that would appeal to you too.
And see, it's interesting because I find it to be more aesthetically pleasing as well. I mean, there is that thing about, and I do sort of wonder how much that's factoring in. I mean, we're surrounded by a lot of really beautiful and interesting cards, and we'll get to some of these in a minute. But I do want to talk about that. I mean, I assume that that sort of plays into it as well. It's the history, it's the look, it's the player, it's the moment, right? It's all these things.
Any other genre of collecting, it always has to have the same characteristics. It's got to be rare.
Yeah.
It's got to be eye appealing. It's got to have good condition. And those are kind of the insignificant, historically significant. So those are always the attributes you need, whether it's tickets, baseball cards, a jersey, whatever.
And we've seen in cards lately some great results for cards that outperforming their grade just because of great eye appeal. Cards that are well centered. We had a 52 tops mantle and a 3 that sold for 6 figures. And I think tickets play into that too. If it's a very aesthetically pleasing, interesting ticket, people are going to pay a little bit more for it. If they're thinking about displaying it, when you talk about some of those early century World Series tickets, they're beautiful, and it looks like a piece of history.
Right.
So that's going to have a little more cachet for collectors.
But then you'll have these people that are either investors or just collectors of a certain player. Kobe Bryant, we sold his his pro debut as a summer league game. It was a Ticketmaster. One would make the argument that maybe it wasn't the best looking ticket, but it was still a 1 of 1,
Right.
the only full from that event, historically significant, at least sports history, and it did really, really well. So, I mean,
Ticketmaster certainly wasn't putting a lot of time and effort into the aesthetics
of the tickets.
they
all look the same from each era. But like I said, when PSA started grading them, it was a game changer. And now you can see that it's a 1 of 1, even if it's a Ticketmaster.
What were the conversations like with PSA at the beginning of that process? When they started grading them, in terms of, did they talk to you guys, or did they talk to folks in the industry and the hobby and say, we're going to start grading these, this is why, this is what to expect, and this is how the market will follow?
Yeah, I mean, there was, I found out about it at one of the Nationals, I think, or one of the Chicago Sun-Times shows that they were even grading tickets.
Really?
And I always loved tickets. One of the first tickets that I ever bought was a Super Bowl I full proof ticket. I was probably 13 or 14 years old. I thought it was a full ticket. That wasn't the proof.
Right.
I didn't know the difference. So I learned the hard way on that one.
Why don't you go ahead and explain what the
I was
difference
about to
is?
ask you that very thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple differences, but the main difference is the original Super Bowl I tickets were made by the Dillingham Company, and the proofs were Weldon, Williams, and Lick. And
My favorite law firm.
yes, exactly. They're both big ticket production companies. I don't know if they still exist. Well, they probably don't exist anymore.
Right.
Unless they're into
The aforementioned
NFT
ticket
tickets or
master.
something like that. But back at Super Bowl was very, very at its infancy, in 1967, and I believe they were trying to see who they were going to have produce the tickets, and both companies produced tickets, and they went with Dillingham. So there's all these tickets from Weldon, Williams, and Lick that weren't used for anything,
really?
and there must have been a big fine or something. But anyway, yeah. So that was so I found out. I found out the hard way when my Super Bowl I ticket wasn't authentic or wasn't an actual used for admission or valid.
What
for
you're trying to
admission
say is it
ticket.
wasn't worth anything.
They're worth a little bit, $100
Yeah.
or $200, and some proof tickets are worth a lot.
Really?
But for that one, I think the whole population got out. Like, it was a big fine of thousands of these, and they're just not rare. But yeah, so was there a lot of talk about what they were grading? I found out that they weren't grading Ticketmaster tickets after I received them back in the mail from
Yeah.
PSA saying, we don't grade these tickets. Here's a voucher that you can use to future, purchases or whatever. And yeah, I was bummed out. I think that they were LeBron James high school tickets. I want to say that those were the ones that I sent in. But now they're grading them, and now they're probably worth thousands of dollars, but they weren't back then.
This reminds me of something that I've been wanting to ask you for a long time. What about tickets for games that did not occur? Say,
Phantom tickets.
Well, I mean, for the Texas Rangers 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, there were World Series tickets made. And obviously they didn't play, but I kept them because I had received them from a friend. I assume that they're not.
Yeah, those are called Phantom tickets.
Yeah.
And the problem with those is they were all full because you didn't use them.
Right.
And there's a very, very small market for them, almost minuscule or nothing. Nobody wants a ticket from an event that didn't happen.
They're all going to be in good condition.
They're all going to be in good condition. They're all going to be fulls.
They're going to be a full sheet of them. I mean,
a lot of times, they leave them in the book, the season ticket book or whatever. There's exceptions to that. If there was a game when right the day after Kennedy was assassinated and then they canceled the game, some of those are kind of cool and people collect those. There's some early boxing tickets. If you're going back 100 years ago and the event didn't happen, it's still a 100-year-old ticket, and they're still pretty rare. And some of those are really nice looking from boxing. Joe Louis or Ali or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, very small market, but there is a market for it.
Well, I'd like to talk to you afterwards then.
Got a lot of those. All right.
What I'm fascinated by, though, is look, there's so many factors that go into this. It's the player, it's the moment. Like, for instance, Tom Brady, I know one of the records that we hold is Tom Brady's first touch, a ticket to the game where Tom Brady threw his first touchdown. You've got different games where a player may have appeared briefly, may have made the first start. I mean, certainly when Tom Brady, you can say first appearance, first start, first touchdown, and so forth. And I kind of want to talk to you about, or Tiger Woods, whether it's the first professional appearance or first appearance and so forth. What defines what makes that ticket special for that particular player in that particular moment? Or
what makes it the better of the two?
Right.
Yeah, I think we're still trying to figure that out. For the Jordan tickets, I think it's a little bit easier because one was a preseason game in Indiana.
Right.
His first preseason game, his first game as a Bull, right? Mm-hmm. And the other one is October 26th, 1984, and that's the one against the Bullets. That's his first regular season game. People want that one more than the preseason. That doesn't mean that the preseason one isn't worth a lot of money, though. It's just probably not as good. But then what would happen if that preseason ticket was a 1-of-1? It's not, but what if it was?
Right.
I haven't seen a full from that one yet, so it probably would be a 1-of-1. So you take a 1-of-1, a preseason full compared to a debut stub from October 26th against the Bullets. The preseason one might, be worth more. I haven't seen one yet though. So, but that doesn't mean just because there's only one preseason. I hope I'm not confusing people.
No, not at all.
I mean, it doesn't mean that the preseason full will be worth more, even though it's a one of one.
Sure.
We don't know yet. I mean,
so we're it's interesting because what you're basically trying to say, I assume, is that we're in the infancy of this.
it's so early.
Yeah. So things change drastically. And I want to talk to you a little bit
From
about
week to
that.
week,
And
they've
the
changed.
pop reports could change drastically. We sold an Ohtani debut full ticket. We estimated at 2,000. It sold for 30,000. That was just in 2018. I guarantee you, a lot of people said I was at that game, and they're looking for that ticket. There's only 3 in a PSA 10. That could change,
And
a lot of those things could change just in the next few months.
and now PSAs, I guarantee they're getting hammered with ticket submissions, just like they were with cards.
Right.
What will that do? The good thing is I think that the tickets are a pretty solid market and will stick around for a while because they are still rare. There's still hundreds of thousands of Jordan rookies, and there's still only going to be dozens or maybe hundreds of debut fulls or stubs, I should say.
Right.
We had that big story about the Jordan full ticket debut, and it's one thing we always talk about. Do we say the only known, the only one in existence?
Can change before the auction ends.
But we didn't hear from anyone with all the press that was done to that. If somebody had one, likely they would have said something. Hey,
Yep.
you guys have got one as well,
And
or
there were other
contacted
tickets
the news outlet about it.
There was other one of one tickets, same boat, and they didn't come out, and they're still one of ones.
Right.
But like you said, that baseball ticket, now there probably is going to be more.
For the ones that are close to the more modern tickets, there's a chance more could come out. If you're talking about Wilt's 100-point game, maybe a few more might come out, but very unlikely that there's going to be dozens more. There was 4,000 people at that game, and it just wasn't something people kept.
But that brings up a point. If you have a one of one, what do you do with it? Even if you're, a collector, you sell it right away. I say yes, unless you're, convinced that there won't be any more, because a pop one of two is a lot different than a pop one of one when you're talking value a lot of times.
Yeah.
That's a big thing consigners always ask us is, especially in the last couple of years when the market kept growing and growing, is it the best time to sell now? Should I wait a little bit? People with the Jordan rookie in a 10, it exploded and went to over $500,000 for a 10. People were thinking, well, I should sit back and wait. It's going to keep going up. And then it kind of settled back down. But I think if you have something right now that's a one of one in a ticket and the market's very high, now's a great time to sell.
But just because other ones come out, that doesn't mean that the value is going to go down.
Right.
We sold a Tiger Woods pro debut PSA 8. God, when was it? I think
August. I think we sold one in
of
August,
of
November,
last
and
year,
then this year.
and it sold for like $35,000, which was a record. Killed the record, at the time. And then another 8 came out, and it went up to 80,000. And then we
Right.
sold a 9, which ended up being the one of one,
Right.
the top, and it sold for almost 100,000. So just because more come out doesn't necessarily mean that the market is going to go down for that ticket, even if there's more than one. It just
In an auction, there's, like you said, it's what 2 people want. So when something gets to 99,000, there was somebody right below it at 95,000 that didn't want it.
exactly.
So, there's always the chance that there could be renewed interest when people see a big result, and the next one could be an even bigger result, possibly.
Yep.
Is there a different kind of collector for tickets than there are for cards and other memorabilia?
I think it's very similar, but I do see a lot of younger people getting involved in tickets.
Really?
I'm more into memorabilia. I'm not really a card guy. So I don't see probably the younger people as with the memorabilia as much, but I would say it's probably a similar group of people, tickets and high grade cards.
And I think it straddles both sides of it well. It is memorabilia. It's something that, like you said, was at the game, but it's slabbed, it's graded. It's in the population report, so it's a little more quantifiable. One thing we've talked about a lot over the last 2 years is how many new people have come into the industry, or people come back in that did it when they were younger, and now they've got a little bit more disposable income. And we talked a lot about how cards, if you're just getting in, it's a little easier to understand how to determine what you have, the value of what you're bidding on. And tickets is like that too. Like we said, the pop reports it's kind of exploding, so things can change a little bit, but it does exist. When you're talking about like a game worn jersey, it takes some savvy to know what you have, know what it's worth in comparison to other similar ones. But tickets kind of has a delicious side of both the memorabilia and the cards.
John asked a question here: with the poor in-person attendance of Super Bowl I, do you ever anticipate a find of fulls?
I hope not. I'm sitting on a couple fulls. I've thought about that. I mean,
was it half full? Is that what it was estimated?
Not even
Not
half
even?
full. There was like 35,000 people in attendance. Anything's possible. I think if it was going to happen, I think it would have happened by now.
Yeah.
I think it would be really exciting, even though I have a couple and they would drop in value, but it would be really neat to open up a safe or to be in that house.
Right.
I get the consignment call and they say, I got something for you, Chris. I'm going to consign it to auction, but I'm not going to tell you what it is till you get here. And all of a sudden they open up the safe and there's all these full Super Bowl I tickets in there. I mean, I'd probably have a heart attack.
And Super Bowl I is one of those tickets. There's been a few that have been a premium for a while. The Lou Gehrig Day, the Wilt 100-point game, and Super Bowl I is one. So it's not like, if that was out there and somebody had it, they weren't thinking it was worth nothing for the last 20 years. They would have known they had something.
Yeah. Right. I do want to talk to you about those moments, the Lou Gehrig Day you just mentioned here a moment ago, the 1919, for me, as someone who did his thesis in college on the Black Sox and the media coverage of the Black Sox, I was utterly fascinated by it. If I could find a ticket to Game 8, I'd be over the moon about it. I mean, I'm fascinated by the fact that these things still manage to turn up all these years later. Where have they been squired away? Where have some of these come from?
A lot of those earlier ones were in scrapbooks. You'll see a lot of them from the early 1900s.
Yeah.
That they'll have like missing paper on the back of them because they were in a scrapbook. So, back then people they were cutting out the newspaper clippings. They were putting their stub next to it. So a lot of them maybe fall into that boat. But once in a while, I from time to time, I'll have people say, I used it as a bookmark, or my grandpa used it as a bookmark in a book and it fell out.
You got one that was a Super Bowl I ticket, right?
It was an Ice Bowl ticket, a full ticket, and it fell out of a book. They were clean. They inherited the bookshelf, and there was books in the bookshelf, and they took the book out, and an Ice Bowl ticket fell out of it, a full one, because a ticket is kind of shaped like a bookmark. So
And World Series, like that 1919 World Series, if anybody went to a World Series, odds are they were going to keep that ticket, especially in that era. It was expensive. But that's one that's a great example of, the cool layers of why it would be interesting. First off, Game 8, which we don't even think about that anymore. But the Reds won it in Chicago in Game 8, and then all the history that came out almost immediately right after about the scandal. So it's easy to see why someone would think one of those is interesting.
Somebody asked a question here, and this is a question that I sort of alluded to at the beginning of this, and I wanted to talk about modern events, modern debuts, Giannis, and so forth. Here in 2021, most baseball tickets are digital. Will paper tickets from 2021 or any particular have increased interest in value?
It's interesting, and I don't know if this is exactly what you're asking, but
I didn't ask it.
on the viewers,
A client asked it. I mean,
there aren't that many hard tickets from 2021 because they are digital for the most part. But collectors and investors are finding little ways to still get hard copy tickets. A lot of these stadiums, to my knowledge, if you tell them you don't have an iPhone or don't have a phone, they still have to get you a hard ticket. So I know for Lambeau Field, where I'm connected to, when Rodgers broke Brett Favre's Packer touchdown record, people were telling the ticket people, the ticket office, that they didn't have a phone. And on eBay, you'll see full tickets from that event. I bought some of those because I thought it was neat. So the problem is with those tickets, they're very generic. They're, they might have a little bit of color to them, but it's pretty much type and a little bit of color, and that's it. But, you can't be too choosy. If they're not making tickets, you got to take what you can get. I was at the NFC Championship game last year when we lost to the Buccaneers at Lambeau Field. There was only 10,000 people allowed in the stadium because of COVID. and there were maintenance workers walking around the stadium before the game, sanitizing the seats. And I cornered a couple of them. And I said, hey, because they had like passes that they were nice looking, actually, that said NFC Championship game and then the date and everything. They were basically press passes or worker passes. And I said, I'll give you $50 after the game for your passes. Well, they agreed to it, but we lost. The Packers lost, and I was all upset, and I just walked home.
Just cried yourself home.
I don't ever get over big games.
Story.
We have so many of them. But yeah, so my point is there is interest. And if you can actually find a way to get a hard copy ticket, I could see one of the ballparks doing a promotion, hard ticket night, where you actually get a ticket to get in the game. I know some, it sounds weird, but people like that. It's like a souvenir.
I had a ticket in my 3 weeks ago. I went to see my son, University of Texas baseball game. I got a hard ticket. I had a digital ticket for the Saturday, the Sunday.
And I guarantee you're not throwing that one away.
Absolutely not. I mean, it's nice to have that ticket.
And then they are making NFT tickets.
The Mavericks do that.
They do.
Yep. And there's a market for that. It's so interesting. The time that we're in for this really, really crazy piece of memorabilia that's just exploding right now, and it's just at the beginning though.
And they do make hard tickets for the Super Bowls.
I don't know if they do anymore. They made a commemorative ticket, and I just went on eBay to look. The past 2 years, I don't think they produced the ticket.
But previous to that, even when people were having digital, we sold that sweet ticket for the Brady Super Bowl. So there are some of those from the modern era out there, even
that's true. Like at Lambeau, the sweet tickets, they're hard tickets, or they were up until last year.
Right.
So different little intricacies of the.
And there's a premium for those sweet level tickets because there's far rarer than the standard in the stadium tickets.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Somebody just asked a question to your point a moment ago about the NFTs of tickets and so forth. Have we seen those?
He's the
world's
NFT
foremost
ticket.
expert on the
Exactly.
I'm not going to
sports
say that.
NFT.
I'm going to sit out of this one.
There is a market for it. And as with all things NFT, it's kind of the Wild West right now, but teams are experimenting with it. Our department went to a Mavericks game last year, and everybody got an NFT ticket, and it would have a certain Mavericks legend on it, and of course everybody wanted the Dirk one. Nobody in our department got it. For just a regular season game like that, some people that did get the Dirk one for that game were trading for a couple $100. So nothing wild, but
better than back when I used to pick up stubs off the ground. I wasn't getting $200, the next day.
But I think getting paid to go to a basketball game is what you're saying.
Yes. So, but I think there's going to be more of that, like for all-star games and things that there's going to be debuts. There'll be
whoever.
The big thing with NFTs is distinguishing it, that it's a limited supply, and they'll probably have, these 100 will have the MVP of the All-Star game on.
Or have like a facsimile signature, and the other ones
Sure.
won't. One will be gold, one won't be.
They'll find a way to get people interested in it. The big thing there,
a patch of a jersey on a ticket.
Yeah,
right. If you're giving 20,000 people something, obviously you're starting off with not too much rarity right there. So you got to find a way to tier it as far as setting some apart to make them more valuable.
Taylor asked a question, Key, and this is something we've been talking about a little bit. Can you talk about pricing for milestones versus debuts? And do you see milestones catching up to debuts? Because right now, debuts have been the foremost.
Yeah, I don't see. It depends on what it is, of course. But even when LeBron breaks Jabbar's record, there's not going to be tickets unless there's NFT tickets. So who knows?
Unless you request one because your iPhone doesn't work.
And everyone's going to.
Right.
So there will be a lot of them. But I don't see, something like that catching up to a debut ticket. A debut is obviously the earliest, and the oldest is a lot of times the best.
And a lot of times those debuts were inconsequential. If you're at a game and a record is set or something momentous happens, people think to keep the ticket.
Plus, you knew going into that game that was going to happen.
Right.
And a good example, everyone's buying these Kurt Warner debut tickets. He was actually on the Packers. I don't want to keep talking about the Packers, but this is interesting.
Please, you don't want to, but I have to.
So he actually played. He got in the game. He was
Kept it.
No, because no one, it was in New York.
Yeah,
and
Melo on the front of it.
Yeah, and nobody in New York even knew who Giannis probably was at the time. So that's, that leads into why that's a very valuable ticket. But there are milestone tickets that are worth a lot of money, and how about a Roberto Clemente 3,000 hit ticket?
Last game also.
But that's, that's before people were saving 3,000 hit tickets,
Right.
probably. So when LeBron breaks Jabbar's record, or if he breaks it, they're not going to be anywhere near what a debut LeBron ticket would be.
Right.
But it depends.
And that was a Sacramento game, too. A lot of those debuts, it's on the road. It's 50-50 almost.
But back when LeBron was starting out, he was already on the cover of SI as a high schooler. So I remember that time well. And I was on eBay looking for those tickets back then. So people were saving them. They weren't getting them with Horn,
And when Zion made his debut, a lot of people were trying to buy up his tickets after the game,
100%.
that he was highly celebrated. People thought there would be money behind it. But those vintage debuts, there's X amount, and unlikely many more are going to come out.
Jason Lacombe wants us to know he has a ticket to Chris Nerat's first intramurals basketball game at Marinette High School.
I'm interested in that.
How much would you pay for that?
I'll trade in my Mavericks NFT ticket straight up.
It
had Rolando Blackman. So,
it's Mike P at HA.com, correct?
P at HA.com.
I believe a deal can be made right now. What are you going to say?
Nothing. I got nothing.
And there's also, we talked about this yesterday, there's debuts, there's significant events, but then there's also kind of strange, quirky tickets that people are interested in. There's the Cubs game where they film the scene for Ferris Bueller's Day Off where they catch the foul ball. Like the Rudy game, that wasn't, anything, the Rudy Rudiger.
The Janet Jackson Ward Super Bowl ticket.
Yes. The Bobby Knight throwing the chair. These are things that at the time, nobody thought, wow, I should keep this ticket. But, all these layers we've been talking about, that's another one right there, is just these weird moments in sports. The Holyfield Tyson when he bit his ear, things like that are of interest to people as well.
Well, and the reason that those are now really into interest or of interest to people is because back in the day when I started getting tickets graded by PSA, they weren't putting Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction or anything on the labels. It was, for the Bulls ticket, it was probably just Chicago Bulls ticket 1984, October 26 versus Bulls 92, Bullets 90. It didn't tell you what actually happened in the event. Now, they'll put anything on there, which actually some of it looks a little strange to me. I'm not going to lie. Exactly. Well, see Ferris Bueller movie taping on a Cubs ticket, I get why it's on there, but they weren't doing it back then. That's why it's strange to me, because it's a new phenomenon, but it's been a godsend for people that are holding on to these tickets because people love it. It's all about displaying your tickets in these PSA holders, and people get a kick out of it. They can pick up this ticket in a PSA holder and see what really interesting happened in that event. And, you're taking a Cubs ticket, a meaningless Cubs game worth probably $1. And then once people research it and see that they were taping the movie at that event, now what are they, $1,000? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Question is, wouldn't Kobe's 81-point game be bigger than his debut? I would assume not.
No.
A lot of people eager for his debut. He was celebrated a lot. Yeah. Same, that 81-point game, everyone knew they just saw history.
Right.
He wasn't as celebrated as like a LeBron, though.
Sure.
He was, I believe, hurt the first game, so he didn't play till I think game 2, and he didn't start.
Right.
I don't even think he had any points in the first game, or maybe I'm not sure. It's not the same thing as a LeBron ticket, but I'm not sure what the population is for the 81 point in a full. And I'm not even positive. I have to look, but I'm not sure if they tore them or if they were just bar. That's another facet to it. There was a time where they would put a barcode on the ticket so they wouldn't tear any of them.
Right.
So they're all technically fulls. Sometimes they would still tear them depending on who the ticket taker was. It's just, so there's so many different facets of it. But I'm not sure how rare the 81 point full is is. But if it's a 1 of 1, then maybe it could be worth more than a stub from, say, Kobe's debut.
But a good example, you know, like you said, his debut wasn't this glamorous celebrated moment, but that 81-point game, that's something everybody remembers where they were. If they were watching
if you were at the 81-point game, you're not throwing away that ticket.
Right.
And if it's a barcode, they're all fulls.
Yeah.
So
Are there white whales? Are there holy grails of tickets? Are there things that you know we've never seen, PSA's never seen, but it has to be out there, or we hope it's out there?
Babe Ruth debut.
I was going to say Babe Ruth debut, I assume, is a big one.
my white whale was that Jordan full,
Yeah.
the debut, until I got that phone call at 4 p.m. on a Friday. I'll never forget it. And I told the guy right away on the phone, I said, Michael, I said, I've been waiting for this call. I didn't think it would be at 4 o'clock on a Friday, but I'm happy that I got it. And and it's still the only one that we know of.
Yeah.
And a lot of those early vintage tickets would be hard to determine which game it was. You know, they wouldn't have had, sometimes they didn't have the date on
It
them.
was like game 24 or something.
Right. So, and very unlikely any of those exist. You know, anything Ruth does very well. The called shot in the
Right.
World Series is a big one from him. There's people that collect his home run tickets. Those are a little bit easier to determine. His Yankee debut would be a huge one. The first game at Yankee Stadium, he hit a home run. That would be a good one. You know, Ty Cobb, those legendary guys.
You know, we talked about major league or pro debut. What about the minor league debuts? What about, you know, a game where somebody, you know, my dad kept his game, Dallas Eagles. They were the New York Giants minor league team. Certainly he was, I think, at a game where Willie Mays played, you know, Dick Wirtz. They used to come through Dallas. But certainly that's just a memory that he kept to himself and he put in his scrapbook, and I found it, you know, just a couple of months ago. To me, it has incredible sentimental value. I don't know about selling it because I don't know if there's value to those far long ago games by minor league teams and, you know, an outpost like Dallas. It was a Giants farm team. Do those have any value?
If it was an important game, like if it was Willie Mays' first game as a minor leaguer, absolutely. If it was just his
Jordan's minor league
Yeah.
debut.
Right.
Yeah, any debut, any milestone, you know, if you hit 5 home runs in the game, something like that, you can prove, something that they can put on the PSA label. But if it was just game 16 of his second year stint in the minor
Sure.
leagues, it's probably $50, $100,
Right.
you know. Yeah,
That's something where research could come into it. You know, like Mantle was sent back down to the minors if you had his first or last.
Well, that's the thing I keep wondering about.
You know, there would be
as
interest
this is
in
a
that.
growing and burgeoning market. There sort of is a question about how much research will have to go into determining the value of these cards, because there could have been something significant, a milestone reached in that long ago, far away game that you just don't know about.
newspapers.com or newspaper.com, punch in that date and, you know, the local newspaper and read up on it. And it might say something that'll surprise you.
See,
and
that's a
add
good
value.
tip for people, I think, to go back. If you have your cache of tickets or some family members' tickets from long ago,
Yep.
that you might want to go and see if something major happened. on
Yeah,
that
start with
particular day.
Google. If you want to upgrade to, you know, a database with newspapers, you could do that. Another thing that you can do is go on eBay or our website or any website and type in, you know, Giant or your Dallas Eagles
Right.
1952 or whatever, and see which dates pop up of people selling tickets from that.
And you could do it from the other side as well. If you said, well, you know, some player or some event you're into and you haven't seen a big sale of a ticket in that, it's probably out there somewhere, and maybe the person has it and they don't even realize what they have. So you go back and research, okay, well, what, you know, when did Clemente get his 3,000th hit? You find that date and then look for the ticket. You
Yep.
might be able to find it out there. And, you know, it's a great way to find a gem. Or if you're at an estate sale or garage sale and they have tickets, you know, it's easy now on your phone to go through, okay, what happened in this game? What happened in this game? Did anything happen? And you might find a
If you're in
gem
an
in there.
estate sale and you see a little box of tickets, people
buy
just
it
buy
all.
it.
Worth
Yeah,
the
just buy it all.
Worth the
Now,
$5.
absolutely.
I mean, let's be honest. Who hasn't gone to an antique mall in the last couple of months ago? I scrapbook. Where's the scrapbook? I have a couple of questions I want to get to in just a moment, but I do want to make sure that we do hold a lot of records. You did actually give me a list and give Tommy a list of top 10 records. We've looked at some of the
Yes.
cards, but
It's
Tommy,
the top 10 ever sold at Heritage Tickets.
Right.
Not necessarily a record, but most of them are.
Tommy, I know you'd like to show your specially prepared graphic for this particular moment. So why don't you go ahead and show that for us now, my friend? You want to talk about any of these while we're scrolling through them?
I was there. 1996, I was.
Was this your ticket?
No, it was not. My ticket, this is a true story. It's not much of a story, but I had
Good intro.
Yeah.
I had
Riveting.
I had the ticket stub in a long time ago. And back then, there was no value for this stuff. I'm talking 18 years ago or something. Tony Gehrig, the famous Heritage consignment director, Tony Gehrig, was at my house. And I sold it to him for like $50. It was only a stub, but it's probably worth $3,000 or $2,000 now. So
Good call.
yeah,
It's a good looking ticket too. I like the aesthetic.
Neat ticket. I always like that ticket. You'd think that you might see a lot more of these because the finals at 1982 NCAA tickets aren't super tough. They're tough to get in this color though. You usually see the yellow version or the gold version, but there's very few that are signed by Jordan. So I'm definitely not surprised by the price of that, but there aren't many of these.
And the blue looks better. The UNC.
Super cool. Yeah. I mean, that's the UNC baby blue.
And tough to get Jordan's autograph now.
I was
If you
gonna
had
say,
one of those
I don't
tickets.
think he's signing any tickets anymore. So.
All right, Tommy. I love this. I have to say,
I saw
love
this in
one.
our archive. So we sold this July. What was the year?
2014.
2014. So the Lou Gehrig day is incredibly desirable ticket. We sold one unsigned for $108,000, which was the record for that ticket.
What would this be worth now?
I was wondering the same thing.
You gotta call the guy who bought that.
Only one I've ever seen signed by
See if
Gehrig.
he still has it.
Very likely a one of one. I can't imagine he was doing many autograph signings after that. But a huge momentous occasion, everyone knows, and a rare ticket. Despite that it was of course a sellout. But you just don't see many tickets from it. But to have one signed, that's crazy.
Go ahead, Tommy.
I thought this was funny, but it's a true result. This was actually Charlie's golden ticket that we sold in our entertainment department for $96,000. How cool is that? Would PSA slab that? I bet they would.
I bet they would.
Sure, why wouldn't they?
I mean, I used to think that they would slab Ticketmaster tickets, and I've been wrong for 15 years.
Talking about tickets, the golden ticket, that's a phrase everyone knows, even if you don't know where it came from, you're not a Roald Dahl fan. But that's a quintessential ticket right there.
And this sold before the ticket boom. I think you put that in a PSA holder, who knows what it's going to be worth now.
Let's find out.
So this is the one that we were talking about. It was a poor one.
Right.
MK, mind you, that's a qualifier for Mark. There was, I believe, writing on the back of it, and it still went for $99,000 in our last auction.
That's the power of Jordan right there. People just want a piece of anything related to his career.
So now would that be worth more in an authentic holder? I don't know. Possibly.
I think if you got that on your shelf and you're going to hold on to it,
Yeah, you want it.
and you're going to show it to people, especially if you're going to show it to people outside the hobby, and they're going to say, what does that PR mean? And you're going to say, well, it means poor.
I'm a ticket collector. I wouldn't even think twice. I'm getting it slabbed authentic.
Yeah. I think if it's going to be a one, authentic is the way to go, unless it's something incredibly rare.
Let me ask you this before we look at number 5. Is PSA clamping down on ticket grading the way they did on card grading? Are they getting stricter on their ticket grading as well?
I don't have a huge sample size for that, but a couple things I've seen in maybe the past 2 weeks, I would say yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into it, but they seem very strict on a couple things that we sent in recently.
Yeah. All right. Tommy, what's number 5? There you go.
There it is again. If I would have just had like $500 at this event, I could have just bought tickets as people are leaving or going in. I mean, we didn't pay more than face value for a ticket. What was the face value? $25. That's just crazy to me. And now it's $99,000.
Or if you just scoured the parking lot afterwards.
Yeah.
There you go.
There was people giving them away after.
And how big was it? So you were there. Were people like, "Oh, this is Tiger's first"?
It was a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yep. It was a huge deal. But one of my
so
buddies,
the rare is the '92, his first PGA
1992
event.
Nissan Open was his first PGA sanctioned event, and I wasn't. I would have been really young then. And I wasn't in the golf
would
at
have
all.
been that young.
I wasn't into Tiger Woods in '92. I can tell you that, but I can still imagine that it would have been a big news story
He was a teenager.
or a news story. Yeah, he was 14 years old, I think, or 13 or 12. He was very young too, and I think that's a pretty cool story.
Yeah.
But it was nothing compared to what the GMO in '96 was. It was a huge deal. We never got a lot of big superstars or superstar golf guys going to that tournament, and the timing was just right. And Tiger announced that he was going to be taking part in that tournament. So everyone in Milwaukee that was a semi-sports fan or semi-golf fan or a golf fan, they were all there. Like, it was a huge deal.
Tommy.
There it is. That's the one we sold in February. So so this is one.
That's a nice looking too.
That's
It's
a
a
beautiful.
PSA
That's a beautiful
2.
ticket.
It probably has a few creases in it, and that's why it's a 2. But the eye appeal is great.
And the aesthetics on it, the color is great, and just a momentous event. So that's the record for the Gehrig Ticket and a pre-war ticket. That's a monster result. That's from November of last year. That's a Tom Brady signed first career touchdown ticket. And, like we talked about the layers of the grading of the ticket
Right.
and the autograph, then you can grade the autograph. This one's jewel 10s right there. So unimprovable example.
Do you remember what the
This one-
population was in that? It had to have been a 101, right?
It was a 1 of 1, and I believe it still is for that ticket right now.
How much, does this sign, we've talked about the signature on a card. How much does it make a difference on the ticket? Just that ticket alone would have been.
It's a game changer as
Yeah.
well.
Especially for Brady, say, like with Jordan, you're not getting him
Right.
to sign tickets now. So if you have it, you have it pretty much now.
But yeah, there's the Magic Bird. What is it? 79 NCAA Finals ticket. It's a rare ticket stub, probably worth 5 to 10,000 in this market. But you get their autograph on it, which they're not tough autographs. Magic and Bird sign a lot. I don't know if they'll still do it though. But now it's like a $40,000 ticket stub if they both signed it.
Yeah.
And that's another one. Great color on it. It's rare.
That's one that could see a jump with the winning time on HBO right now, putting them out front, just like The Last Dance.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good one. There it is.
You remember the day you got the call.
How do you feel when you look at that ticket today?
Just waiting for the next one.
And that one had a great story behind it too, and the consignor talked about it, that
Right.
he was from Washington. He went to go see the Bullets, and he got 2
He was
tickets.
from Washington.
He's from
I think,
Washington, going to school in Chicago.
in Chicago. So, and he got it from someone that worked for the Bullets, actually.
Right.
And I think everyone can commiserate us for sure with not being able to find someone to attend something with.
Well, that's
you.
the thing with a full ticket. It's always the question is why is it full? Why isn't it used?
Right.
And then it's usually a funny story or a good story.
Just couldn't find anybody to go with him.
Well, that's what he told me. He said, I didn't have many friends, evidently, and I'm like, well, you're going to be rich now.
Which is a good way to make friends.
Yes,
He has a lot of
I've
friends
heard.
now, right? And obviously the number one is the Jackie Robinson, which we talked about. Which I just, again, that could,
Barely snuck out my Jordan.
And we
My
haven't-
friend's Jordan.
yeah, but even Michael, the consignor of the Jordan ticket, was like, I'm
That's
glad. He said, I'm glad the Robinson sold for more
He was
because
such
it's
a
way
good
more
dude.
historic.
He was
And
such
we've
a
got
good dude.
another Jackie debut ticket coming up in our May auction. Just
What is
an
it graded?
authentic example, but very
So is it
rare.
nicer than that one, or is it?
You have it here?
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen it in person.
Is that it down there?
This is
That's
the
a big
last game at Ebbets Field ticket there,
Okay.
which we sold the first game at Ebbets Field ticket a few months ago for 40,000, I believe. The only known of that. So I saw that one in the auction and had to pull
What do
it
we
out.
have before we get out of here? I mean, we have such a
I didn't even know there were
cornucopia-
tickets behind
We
me.
have such a cornucopia of
I
tickets
love
around here.
this one.
You can go ahead and
I can grab it. This is Bo Jackson's NFL debut. And for people in our age group, they'll
Huge moment.
remember that Bo Jackson, believe it or not, was a bigger deal than Michael Jordan in the late 80s. And but no one was collecting tickets in the late 80s. So this is a super cool ticket. They played the Patriots.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're all full of glare here, my man.
I'm sorry.
Here you
There we go. Yeah, so they played the Patriots. That was pre-Gillette Stadium, and it's also signed. And you know, that ticket is probably one of those that someone had in a box, completely forgot about it, maybe didn't even know that it was Bo Jackson's debut, pulled out the box after they saw the ticket boom was going on.
It
And
was upside down, I've been told. I've been told it was upside down. My apologies.
pulled the ticket out.
I couldn't hear the screening from the room.
And did a little research and found out that this is Bo Jackson's NFL debut. And yeah, the market on something like that is crazy. So that's one of my favorite. How about you, Mike? Anything behind us?
We
Or in
have
front of us?
the Hail
Or in front
Mary
of us?
ticket is over here somewhere. This is
That's
one.
the drive.
This is the drive. John Elway signed the drive ticket.
That's
Here's
the Hail
here's
Mary.
That's the Hail Mary one.
And those are both fulls.
That's an interesting one. That's Mahomes' NCAA debut, and it was at Oklahoma State. So probably not a lot of Oklahoma State people were holding on to that ticket. It meant nothing to them.
Right.
There's not a lot of this one. That's Peyton Manning's NFL debut, and it looks like it's basically a Ticketmaster ticket, but it's a kind of a neat color scheme going on, and at least the helmet's in there.
And then that one on the top. So we talked about LeBron's debut ticket, which was in Sacramento. That's his first NBA win, which is a Cavs ticket. So if you're a Cavs fan, that might be a little more aesthetically pleasing to have. That's the Miami Notre Dame Catholics versus Convicts.
Which I don't think
ticket.
anybody can see, by the way, because they all have a remarkable glare on.
Well,
them.
that's excellent.
But that's what the
preparation
website's
by
for.
One thing I
Right.
did want to talk about, this is a ticket from Woodstock, 1969 Woodstock. There's definitely a lot of fulls. There was a find of these, and there's tens of thousands of them, but they're still, highly significant. It's, arguably the most important modern, or I don't know if you consider it modern day music event. I'm not a music guy, but he's the critic.
Concerts.
What was
is
it
an
place called?
interesting one,
Hot
too.
Club?
The Hot Club.
There
I'm
we
the
go.
only person who was born when Woodstock occurred in this room.
Were you there?
I would have been 8 months.
There was people there about that age.
My parents were not Woodstock.
Okay.
They did not even
That
go
would
to
be cool.
They didn't even go to the Texas International Pop Festival that was held here with Led Zeppelin and
Wow.
Janis Joplin.
Yeah, that was a big thing too.
Yes.
But the reason why I point that out is I think, there is definitely a market for music tickets, entertainment tickets, but it's behind sports. So, anyone looking for maybe something that's, I don't want to say a bargain, but something that's up and coming.
Elvis.
We sold.
A ticket from Dylan going electric would be
Oh, yeah,
interesting.
that would be great.
That would be a good one. If you think
And the
of
Beatles concert. Beatles obviously didn't
Sure.
tour that often.
the Stones concert where there was the riot,
Altamont.
Right. If you think about a important event like that,
Michael Jackson first moonwalk, Apollo
Sure.
at Motown 20 or
which our
whatever it was.
entertainment department is selling the hat from that. he was
Really?
wearing.
Oh my Lord. That's cool. I want to wear it next time we
But that's a
You don't want
good
to
note
devalue it.
that
That's
the
true.
the entertainment is behind it right now. So if you're looking to get out ahead of something, that's what everyone always says. Like we did, you wish you had $500 to buy all those tickets.
Yes.
That's a good
Well,
demographic.
before we wrap this up, and we've been here a while, and I want to hold people hostage. But look, since tickets have taken off, I assume you've seen an uptick in consignment. Obviously,
Oh, it's huge.
I mean, has
It's
there
huge.
is there any constant among the people, the things that are coming to you? Are they from some? Are you seeing significant things you didn't know you were going to see? Are there commonplace tickets that are coming to you?
I'm seeing a lot of the debut stubs and fulls from
Yeah.
just ones I've never seen before. And they all have different designs. So it's kind of cool, like that Bo Jackson one. That's a kind of crazy looking ticket.
Yeah.
I love it. GOATs, greatest of all time guys. Jordan, Brady, Gretzky, Babe Ruth, I guess. A modern guy would be Mike Trout. A lot of people are submitting every single different milestone from all the GOATs. But,
What do you think that impact is going to ultimately have on the market as the popularity takes off and as you were seeing more and more and more tickets come available?
they're still rare.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing. And compared to cards, they're just so much more rare. The reason that it works for cards is because the demand is so huge. But I really see ticket collecting getting a huge chunk out of that demand from cards and transferring over to ticket stubs. They're buying both.
Right.
Like, it's not like they're starting from square one. I mean, square one was 15 years ago when no one was buying tickets, but now it's, maybe 20-30% of the card market has also started buying tickets. So we are seeing a lot of tickets, but we're seeing a lot of variety, which is good. So we're not getting flooded with like 50 Michael Jordan debut stubs.
Right.
We're maybe getting a handful of them.
And we're still learning what could be interesting. I had somebody ask the other day, they have Allen Iverson's debut ticket. It was also Ray Allen's NBA debut.
Yeah, both on the
That's a
same
pretty
day.
cool one. And it's a good looking ticket. It's not a rectangle. It's got like a design around the outside.
right.
So, I mean, I think anyone that's likes to research or look into it or go through your collection, if you have a big collection of tickets, there's a chance you've got something good in there, and we're happy to help.
And there's a lot of different ways to collect, like NBA top 50 or now NBA top 75 guys get all their debuts,
Mm-hmm.
get all their last games, get all their milestones, whatever. Hall of Famers,
First touchdowns, last touchdowns,
yeah.
first home runs,
You
last home
name
runs.
it.
Oh,
I talked to a guy the other day. He's trying to get, when the ticket from when Kareem set the scoring record.
Where was that
me.
game? If either you two know, I will buy you lunch.
Milwaukee.
my lunch is waiting for me, so I don't really care.
Las Vegas.
Oh yeah.
Huh.
And it was a regular season game, obviously, against the Utah Jazz. And believe it or not, it was a Jazz home game.
In Las Vegas?
Because
Wow.
and I think that, well, I don't know if LA is closer to Vegas or if Utah, Salt Lake City would be. It's probably pretty close. But the reason why they were there, I believe, is because they couldn't fill the stands in Utah. They were a fairly new franchise. They were in New Orleans before that. And one of the most, maybe the most historic record in basketball was done at basically a neutral site. Kind of cool.
That's what makes you the world's most foremost expert.
No, my golf coach played on UNLV's golf team back then, and he asked me what it would be worth when I was getting lessons over the summer. And we talked about where it was, and he said it was at Thomas and Mack Center. So that was just me being lucky.
Wow.
Well, if folks want to get in touch with you, why don't you remind them the best way to do so?
Yeah, you can just shoot me an email, chrisn@ha.com, CHRISN@ha.com.
And Mike P@ha.com as well.
Or you can message me at any of our social media platforms.
There you go. Gentlemen, I appreciate this. And everybody who watched and asked very good questions, I appreciate you joining us as well. This is, again, a thing I never thought we'd be talking about when I started here 2 years ago. And yet, nevertheless, it's become one of the more fascinating discussions.
You say that a lot, don't you, about different categories?
Look, I mean,
There's a lot of new things.
the fun part
No, I'm
about
just saying there's a
working
lot
here.
of new things happening in a lot of the categories.
yeah, I mean, look, I don't think anybody sort of expects the auction world to stay static, but it's there's a
video
new
games. You got VHS coming up. You could be talking about dinosaur teeth in one of these.
Yeah,
next.
ticket subs sounds kind of normal compared to all these other ones.
And we'll talk about our sealed action figures later.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching, and we'll do another one of these very soon down the road. So thanks.